911 and connect with a trained representative who will direct your issue to the appropriate department. If you're on the go and need to report a problem, you can also use the 311 smartphone app. Select from a list of service requests, take pictures to be uploaded, add a
Hello? Okay. Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We do apologize for the delay in start time. Sometimes I'll say new technology is great, but sometimes it's not. So thank you so much. We appreciate you for being here today. I do want to say that today we're going to give some important updates. The city manager will review all of the things that have been moving forward this week. Then after that, after the summary is provided, Gabby will provide a Spanish version of the summary this morning. Afterward, we will open the floor for questions from the media. When we get to the media Q&A, please wait for the microphone to reach you, and then that way we can broadcast and our audience can hear you. So now it is my pleasure to introduce City Manager Peter Zanoni. Thank you.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. And Cecilia, thank you for that introduction. As Cecilia said, I'm Peter Zanoni, the City Manager for the City of Corpus Christi and also representing Corpus Christi Water. So this morning we want to begin by thanking the media that's here. We do have Chris Six here with us, Rachel Clow. We also have Michael Salazar from Chris Six. And then we have Sean Merritt as well, who's here, who has a Facebook page. We want to continue to thank the community and others who are listening live and watching live. This is an important topic, and these weekly briefings help with our water situation. So as Cecilia said, we have several major updates we want to go over today, including policy that City Council will consider on Tuesday that would be used if we go into a level 1 water emergency. But before we get there, let me talk a little bit about our water capacity. And so we have improvement since last week on our water capacity. Lake Corpus Christi is up from a week ago. And today, as of this morning, it has 10.3% capacity. Choke Canyon is currently at 7.4% capacity. We didn't see much change from the rains last weekend on Choke Canyon. So combined, the two western reservoirs are at 8.2%, which is an improvement over last week. The biggest story, though, is Lake Texana. Lake Texana, as of this morning, is at 79% capacity. So that's tremendous. A few weeks ago, it was below 50. It reached about 49%. That 79% is a reading from the Lavaca-Navidad River Authority that manages Lake Texana. And then also improving is our water use from the Lower Colorado River. Similarly, a few weeks ago, the river water amount was lessening. However, with these rains, the river is in great shape, and we're able to get our water from there as well. Currently, we get about 30 million gallons a day from the Lower Colorado River, and about 42 million gallons a day from Lake Texana. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what will happen Tuesday at City Council. And so, as you may know, we had two City Council workshops to discuss policy on a level 1 water emergency. One was on March 31st, and then the second was on April 21st. We were to take a vote, or the council was going to vote, on April 28th, but we took the last 2 weeks to review and update the policy that council will consider. And so on Tuesday, May 12th, City Council will consider a host of changes to what we initially presented. Those changes include baseline methodologies, their curtailment percentage will stay the same, and a few other changes that I'll review with you now. One of our first things I want to highlight is that we always had a residential first focus, but the changes that we'll go over with City Council on Tuesday are even more residential focused. And as an example, we are going to recommend moving the baseline up for residential customers from what was 7,000 to 8,000 gallons per month. When you apply that 25% curtailment, the allocation for residential customers will move from 5,650 to 6,000. 5,250, sorry, okay, to 6,000. We know that most of our customers use less than 6,000, but this will help those that use more to be within that allocation amount. Surcharges is the next thing that we'll talk about. We did have surcharges in the drought contingency plan, and there'll be some changes recommended there. Surcharges, let's see, for residential customers will be applied based on the allocation, and they'll remain the same for the commercial accounts. We are looking, though, at adding surcharges to large volume users, and that's new. We still have some work to do. Right, discussions with our partners. And so surcharges will be discussed more on Tuesday. But the goal is to use surcharges in lieu of fines that could be issued, especially to residential customers. So one of the key things for residential customers is that we're not going to fine residential customers any longer if they go over their allocation amount. Prior, that was talked about, was fining residential customers if they go over their allocation, but we're no longer recommending that. The same thing with turnoffs. We're not going to turn water off if people go over their allocation. Fines will still exist, though, if a residential customer or any customer is violating really the level 3 drought contingency or drought management plan rules, such as irrigating your landscape. Okay. Another change that we'll talk to the community and the council about on Tuesday is car washing and boat washing. So the current drought contingency plan prohibits car washing in a level 1 water emergency. We are going to recommend that car washing would be prohibited at home with a 5-gallon bucket or a bucket. Would be allowed, not prohibited, sorry, would be allowed at home with a bucket. Additionally, car washes would be able to operate. If a commercial car wash would be able to operate, they would be treated like any other commercial account. And let's see, okay, so I think those are the main key things, right, Nick? So for residential customers, we increase the baseline, which increases the allocation. No fines for going over the allocation. No turnoff notices or even issues if they go over the allocation. Surcharges would be more of a tool, and they would be applied based on the allocation and would double if you go over the baseline, right? And then we're going to work with industry to see if we can get consensus on charging surcharges, even if you have the drought exemption fee that you pay, the drought exemption surcharge fee, that surcharges would go into effect for large volume users regardless if they bought that insurance or not. Okay? Let's talk a little bit about swimming pools. We had initially talked about modifying the hours of our swimming pools in the summer season for this summer, but upon further review of operational changes that we can make to save water at pools, to include making sure every one of our municipal pools has a cover, we're no longer going to modify the hours compared to last year's schedule. So our pools, our 4 swimming pools that are seasonal, and our 2 outdoor aquatic facilities will have the same hours as we had last year. And then our 5 splash pads will also have the same hours as last year. Okay, so that will be announced today via press release as well, and we'll talk to council about that on Tuesday as well. Let's talk a little bit about how customers can determine how much water they're using. And so we know everybody has a meter at their house. It's in their yard, front yard generally. But we've developed a residential water usage lookup portfolio, or not portfolio, but website. that our IT department has done, and we're gonna roll that out next week after council approves some of these policies like baselines and curtailment amounts. And so the residential water lookup will be a web-based application, and customers will be real easy to use and access. The customer will put in their customer number and their address, their customer account number and their address, and then it will show them their water used to date, whenever that date is. It'll also show them historical usage and average water used per day for the prior billing cycle. So that's coming out next week. Real quick about some of the groundwater projects. Just a quick update on those. And so the Evangeline project, let me just take a quick sip of this water. The Evangeline groundwater project, we know that the issue there is the permits. And so we're still awaiting the decision from Administrative Law Judge Alicia York. And today is the 8th day. And we expect, she said that her decision would be out by the 10th business day. So that would make it Tuesday of next week. There could be some news today. The Nueces groundwater program continues. We currently have 15 wells in total, 8 in the east and 7 in the west, producing about 13 million gallons a day. Effluent reuse, the big change there is that on Tuesday, or the new news there is on Tuesday, City Council will consider a construction contract for the pipeline conveyance system from Oso to Greenwood. And then seawater desalination, the news there is yesterday there was another Farfield meeting, and that's coming along well. There's 2 more meetings, one on the 21st, and then a final on May 28th. Okay, so in closing for next week, we know on Tuesday, City Council will consider those policy items, and then we'll be here again next week for a full update. So that concludes the briefing for this morning. We're going to have a translation in Spanish, and then I'll come back up for questions.
Vamos a comenzar el reporte de esta semana con los niveles de las presas. El lago Corpus Christi cuenta con 10.3%, Chow Canyon con 7.4%. La capacidad combinada de los embalses occidentales es del 8.2%, mientras el lago Texana, gracias a las lluvias recientes, han elevado los niveles al 79% de su capacidad. Actualmente se extraen 30 millones de galones diarios en el río Colorado y 42 millones del lago Texana. El 12 de mayo, el concilio de la ciudad va a decidir varias cosas, entre estas, el recorte de agua propuesto para los residentes. Nosotros vamos a recomendar que en lugar de solo dejar el uso de 7,000 galones de agua al mes, lo subiremos ese nivel a 8,000 galones de agua por mes para los residentes. Uno de los cambios importantes es que vamos a recomendar el no multar a los residentes que utilicen más agua de la permitida. Los sobrecargos también se van a discutir para los residentes, serán decididos dependiendo de su apropiación de agua que se les vaya a emitir, pero eso no va a cambiar, el concilio va a tomar esa decisión. Vamos a recomendar también que se permita el lavado de autos en las residencias siempre y cuando se utilice una cubeta, y los lavautos comerciales no serán penalizados y podrán trabajar normalmente. En cuanto a las albercas públicas, el horario no será modificado y será el mismo del año pasado. Todas las albercas tendrán cubiertas para evitar así su evaporación. Toda esta información la tendremos en un comunicado de prensa, el cual se estima poder emitir más tarde. También tendremos un portal de internet que daremos a conocer la semana próxima para que los residentes puedan ver sus cuentas. Dependiendo de su domicilio, ahí podrán encontrar el uso de agua diario y el historial de uso de agua en sus residencias. Continuamos esperando el fallo de la juez en relación al proyecto Evangeline. Este cuenta con 15 pozos en total. Se espera que en 2 días más la juez pueda dar su fallo en cuanto a ese proyecto. Sobre la desalinización de agua de mar, aún tendremos más juntas, 2 juntas más durante este mes. Esperamos tener más información durante la junta del concilio del próximo día martes, y esperamos tener más detalles después de esa junta del concilio.
Thank you, Gabby. Now, Mia's going to be traveling around with the microphone for some questions.
Good morning. So I want to talk about the residential baseline. Last week when Chris Six asked why the city couldn't just increase the residential baseline of 7,000 gallons a month, Mr. Winkleman said it doesn't make sense to artificially raise a number. We know where we need to hit. We know where the averages are for the system to remain stable in the event we get to a level 1 water emergency. Given that response, why does the proposed ordinance now recommend the baseline be set at 8,000 gallons a month? What specific data, analysis, or expert recommendation caused you to reverse this position? Who made the decision?
Right, yeah, thank you, Rachel. So that's Rachel Clow from Chris Six asking about the baseline. So we have said it several times that the average customer today is using around 4,500 gallons of water a month. So if we increase it, it doesn't really change their ability to use more water, because they're pretty much using what they'll be able to use under this stage 3 water restrictions. However, about 30% of all of our customers use more than the 5250. 5250 was the original allocation. 30% of the customers, residential customers, use more than that. So this would give those customers more flexibility in their water use by raising the baseline from the 5250 to the 6,000 per month. 6,000 is also it's a round number. It's a thousandths number. The monthly bills are done in thousands of gallons. So it's typically, when we talk about the residential customer, the average when it comes to billing is about 6,000. And so it just aligns better with information that has been out there. Right, Nick? Is that, yeah.
So I have a follow-up question to that,
Okay.
because the city has previously told me that it can't just arbitrarily increase residential allocation because other customers, such as wholesale or large volume water users, may say, if you're arbitrarily increasing residential, I want mine increased as well.
Yeah.
So is the city concerned that that could happen?
Right, so Rachel's question, I think you all heard it, but do we cause unintended consequences if we raise the residential baseline? We don't think we do. We'll have conversations with our wholesalers. The amount of water based on the methodology that we would use for them, which is a 3-year average essentially, still gives them more water than what they're using today. Whereas in our residential customers, on average, we would be giving them about the same or less in some cases water. So we'll work through those situations that could come out. But I wouldn't say it's an artificial raising. It's just a raising to get an allocation that's more round. It's a rounded. It's a thousandth number, 6,000, and it's one that we use or talk about a lot when it comes to budgeting and rate setting, and it'll give more flexibility to those customers that use more than 5250.
Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Merritt.
Sean Merritt, Corpus Christi citizen. And the tools and medium may change, but the job doesn't. And I got just 3 questions for you.
Okay.
Private desal proposals are now openly discussing mineral recovery and monetization of brine as part of the project economics. Did the city ever conduct a formal analysis of brine resource recovery? And if not, does the emergence of these proposals suggest the city's desal planning may have been too narrowly focused on disposal rather than recovery?
Right. Mr. Merritt's asking about this past Tuesday, City Council heard a general overview of another desal proposal by a company called Axe H2O. And part of their business proposal is to mine, I guess, minerals or components out of the brine discharge. We're not too familiar with that technology, and we're not too familiar with that business proposal. That's one of the things we'll be wanting more information from this company on. We have looked at alternative uses for the brine that could come out of our Inner Harbor desalination facility. In fact, when we interviewed the three firms about 2 years ago, we asked them to give us alternative options that the city could consider rather than just discharging the brine back into the bay system. There was some initial feedback from the then three consultants. However, the technologies are still very new, and the issue with them is that it's very expensive to try to recover whether it's salt or some other mineral out of the water that goes back into the bay system. So I would say that the technology that Axe H2O talked about needs a little more vetting or a little more presentation so that it makes sense to us, both from the purpose of it and especially the cost of it. And so the direct answer to your question is yes. We looked at alternate uses for the brine discharge when we look at the Inner Harbor project. And should council approve that project, I think in the future there'll be continued analysis on options rather than just discharging it into the bay system.
Very good. Question 2. Under the new 6,000 gallon cap, residents applying for a variance are required to still explain if they have medical needs and health and safety impacts in detail. Exactly what level of personal or medical information is expected in that? Who specifically will review those submissions? What medical qualifications will they hold? And what written policy governs how that information is to be stored, protected, and who can access it?
Right, yeah, thank you. So Mr. Merritt has several questions on the exemption process for residential customers, residential. We may get exemptions as well from commercial accounts. So I appreciate you asking that question because I want to reiterate again that a level 1 water emergency is serious. It's a serious situation if we get into one. But how we treat residential customers has to be delicately balanced and with a customer first for residents focus. And we had that approach when we first talked to City Council in those 2 workshops that we had. But we'll be reiterating it on Tuesday, and as we go out into the communities for our 8 community workshops, which is that our focus is our residents right now when it comes to a level 1 water emergency. We already showed that to generate 16 million in demand reduction, we're really going to have to be talking to the large volume users, the industrial customers. That's where the water savings is going to come from. It's not going to come from residential customers. They've already done their part for the past 2 years. So a simple message for our residential customers is whatever you're doing today, keep doing if we get into a level 1 water emergency. Now, we do have to have some type of metrics to follow so we can see how demand reduction is occurring and can we push out demand so that supply always meets demand. So that's where you could have a larger family or somebody that has medical issues that might use more than 6,000 gallons a month. And so we'll have a very simple request for variance process that will be reviewed and managed by Corpus Christi Water teammates. It'll be confidential. It'll be very user-assisted. So we're not going to expect somebody to necessarily fill out a form and then just send it in and wait for days. We hope to have persons on the other end of either the computer or the phone helping them through the process. It's just a one-page form. It'll be simple. We'll guide the residential customer. And it's more so just to help manage the process and less about punishing anybody. Right, and so we do have to have some metrics so we can see how much water do we need to use every day. And so if somebody needs a variance over the 6,000, we'll work with them and we'll help them through that. We know that bigger families, families of maybe more than 2 children and 2 parents, you could have grandparents living in the home. You could have a bigger extended family. And so as I mentioned, right now, 30% of our residential customers use more than the old allocation of 5250. So there'll be some variances that come in. We're not expecting residential customers that have a legitimate use for water today to fit into that 6,000 allocation. And so we'll help walk them through that process for the variance. Right, Nick, anything else on that?
We don't want any medical
Okay, no medical records, says Nick. Yeah, but there'll be very little documentation, frankly. Right. Right. So a case doesn't have to be laboriously made when people call for a variance. We have all the data we really need, which is how much water have you historically used at that residential home? And if it's been a higher number, we just need the explanation as to what might be the reasoning, more just for data tracking. And then it'll be reviewed and most likely approved. Because it fits within our concept here of the residential customer has got to be first if we go into a level 1 water emergency. We know there has to be equity, and by state law, we're required by state law to make sure there's a same percentage reduction. But we know the residential customers have already done their part. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Nick. Last question. Yesterday, multiple scientists on the Fall Field Committee stated that the baseline model is still underestimating observed salinity data. Dissolved oxygen is not included in the scope. Independent peer review is not currently planned, and key long-term environmental scenarios still have not been modeled. Given that, why is the city still keeping the same June decision timeline for a project expected to impact Corpus Christi Bay for the next 20 to 30 years?
Yeah, so when we, thank you, Mr. Merritt. The last question deals with our far-field model and the scope of work. The scope of work that the community has asked for and that the city council asked for and that we've thought was real important as well has not changed. It's the same. And the issue for years has been, will a desal facility in the Inner Harbor change salinity levels in the bay? Will it increase salt content in the bay? That has been the number one and the only request by the city council, by the community. There was limited to even no conversation on the concept of dissolved oxygen and that type of thing. And so, or peer review, although there's nothing wrong with peer review. The meeting yesterday, as an example, can be watched right now by anybody, any peer, and can be reviewed, and the feedback can be brought back to the next meeting. And that's true for the entire process here. So the modeler felt that they could, based on the scope of work and the request for proposal, deliver the work that we asked them to deliver on behalf of the city council. And that is a far field model that looks at the entire bay. We actually added 2 more bay components to the quote-unquote bay. So we have the ship channel, the Corpus Christi Bay, and Nueces Bay. So we expanded the scope of analysis. And the question that was asked to be answered will be answered, and that is, will the desal facility in the Inner Harbor impact salinity levels or temperature levels in the bay? And then from that, the modeler said that salinity and temperature are real good indications of dissolved oxygen issues or hypoxic potential areas. And so even that question can be answered with his study, or with Sferos' study, even though it wasn't part of their original scope of work. So the timeline is something folks have talked about in the committee meeting yesterday, and saying that we don't have enough time, we want to review it with our peers. The modeler has told us when they agreed to do the work that there was plenty of time. In fact, we extended the contract by 30 days to give me more time, and that they can answer the questions that we put a request for proposal out for a consultant to answer, and the questions that the council and the community has had will be answered. I don't know what happened to Mr. Mayor.
So now I've got a couple of questions that were sent in from Colleen with the Texas Tribune. Her question is, since Lake Texana's capacity has increased, is the city's projection of when a level 1 water emergency to come online still expected by September?
Right, yeah, and who was that again that was asking?
Colleen with the Texas Tribune.
Okay, great. So Colleen from the Texas Tribune recognizes that the Choke Canyon just a few weeks ago was based on the Texas Water Development Board website was 49%, had fallen below 50%. Texana, not Choke Canyon. Lake Texana was 49% based on the Texas Water Development Board website. Today, as I mentioned, it's at 79%. So that's 20 percentage points higher, and that's in water volume. Also, the lower Colorado River is flowing. There was even issues of potential, it's not I guess it would be considered curtailment there as well. and our western reservoirs were below 7%. So that has changed where Texana is now at 79% and our combined levels are at 8% in the west. So all that to say, the question now is the dashboard that we have, the one that showed a level 1 water emergency being triggered in September of 2026, does that change? The answer is it most likely will change. And what we are going to do is wait for about a 30-day period between the last run and the new run. Based on our model's availability, we'll be able to run, not next week, but the following week, an updated model, and then we'll show that to council, the last council meeting in May. Or earlier.
Maybe the 19th.
What were the dates?
Maybe the 19th or the 26th.
Okay, so maybe May 19, if not May 26, we'll release the new model, but we're pretty confident that what was a September level 1 water emergency declaration will now move to a month or two in the future based on these 2 updates in our water supply.
Great. So she's got 2 more questions. One of them is, what would curtailment look like for wholesale water customers of the city?
Right, curtailment for wholesale customers. So we presented to City Council in the last 2 workshops, and we'll present this Tuesday. Wholesalers, there's about, is it 5, Nick, or 6 wholesalers? That includes a big one that everybody knows, South Texas. San Patricio Municipal Water District is the largest one. Other wholesale customers include South Texas Water Authority, Alice, Mathis, Beeville. So the recommendation that we gave to City Council deviates from what's in the drought management plan today. So the current policy that had been prior approved by City Council said do a 5-year averaging for wholesalers, and that would be their baseline, and then curtailment would be 25% of that amount. Based on data review and things like a big new user coming on board just 3 years ago, they weren't here the first 2 years of the 5-year continuum. If we use that methodology, they would get less water, much less than what they use today. So we felt that wasn't a good methodology. So we recommended to City Council that we use a 3-year average, taking out 12 months of that 3-year average. That would give them, when you take the 25% curtailment percentage, that would actually give them about 2 million a day more in water than if we use 2 million more a day than what they use today, and I think it was quite a few million more than if we use that old methodology that's in the drought management plan.
Okay, and her last question is, I believe I heard the city manager say during the city council meeting this week that the city uses around 70 million gallons a day. Is that correct? And what is the average amount of water the city needs a day?
She said 70 million?
Yes, she's asking if this is the correct number she heard.
No, I'm not sure what that comes from. I'm not sure if Colleen's talking about the city government, what we use in our park systems at City Hall and so on. Did she say?
She doesn't clarify, she just asked
Okay.
if the city uses around 70.
I don't know where the 70 comes from, but the city is a water customer as well. So city facilities like City Hall, our park system, our Hilliard Center, water is used in our water production processes as well as in our wastewater production processes. And so what we do use a day is about 1 million gallons of water a day. And the majority of that is used in our wastewater treatment process as well as in our water production process. It actually takes water to make water at our Owen Stevens water treatment plant. And so we, like any other customer, will face, if we go into a level 1 water emergency, we'll face a 25% curtailment. And we're working right now on what we would do to reduce water consumption. We know that Nueces County is talking about these same issues because they similarly are a municipal user, and I do want to thank Judge Scott for taking the leadership role, working with all of her elected officials there to see how they can reduce water. One thing they're looking at is a 4-day work week for their employees in the county government. We're going to look at something along those lines, as well as other water use reductions, so that we too can be leaders in the community when it comes to reducing our water consumption.
Questions from Colleen?
Okay, thank you, Colleen.
I'd like to go back to citations. So the proposed ordinance says customers who exceed the baselines or allocations are not subject to citation. The city has previously said citations are necessary to ensure compliance with large volume water users. We have heard the city say over and over again, multiple large volume users are exempt from surcharges. Now you're talking about, well, let's see if they're willing to pay the surcharge. So it seems to me under this ordinance that your only real method of enforcement is through surcharges, and a lot of them don't pay that. What is the reality that a large volume water user is going to voluntarily pay that?
Right. Yeah, so Rachel's talking about let me just give some background context for listeners and other media outlets. So large volume users, the majority of them have paid a 31 cents per 1,000 gallon drought exemption, drought surcharge exemption fee. They've been paying it for years. It generates about 5 million, 6 million annually. The drought management plan that was in effect when that optional payment went into place and was approved by City Council had various stages for drought management, stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. When we look at the new City Council approved drought contingency plan, there is no stage 4. And let me back up by saying that the drought surcharge exemption fee said that it could exempt these large volume users that bought this insurance for levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we have a drought management plan that has no level 4, but rather a level 1 water emergency that really focuses on curtailments and reduced water consumption. So in our conversations with City Council, and we agree, some of them believe that there is no exemption even if you paid the fee at a level 1 water emergency. There is exemption to surcharges based on both the old plan and the new plan. There's a potential for exemption for stages 1, 2, and 3, and those still exist. It would have been if there was a stage 4, but there is no stage 4 anymore. There's a level 1. So we're seeing that the surcharge is probably going to be the best way to keep people compliant with the allocation amount, whether you're a residential customer or commercial. The issue of fining people and turning off their water is just not appealing. It's not appealing to anybody, and frankly, we got a lot of negative backlash from it. And so we're taking a different approach, which is that let's look at surcharges as a tool to help customers stay within their allocation amount. And so for the residential customer, they would have paid surcharges, and under this new plan, they still would pay surcharges. Same thing for commercial. And so to be equitable across all customer classes, even if you bought the insurance, the notion now is the insurance covered you for a stage 1, 2, and 3 water level, or water reduction level, drought level, because City Council had the ability to issue surcharges in stages 1, 2, and 3. But now, if a level 1 water emergency is in effect, we're saying everybody should pay surcharges to keep it fair, keep it equitable. Plus, for a large volume user, that would probably be the best way to make sure they stay compliant. Because as you mentioned, if you're paying the insurance, there's no real incentive to make sure you stay within your allocation as a large volume user. A $500 fine is not going to do anything to a multi-billion-dollar corporation. But surcharges, we think, would be a better tool to keep them within line. So that's the concept behind a new recommendation that'll be talked. First, we're going to talk to, we already actually have begun talking to our commercial, our large volume user partners, I should say. We'll have more conversations between now and Tuesday as well.
Thank you for providing the background, but I just want to essentially summarize what I believe you said.
Okay.
While the city has previously said that large volume water users who are part of the drought exemption program would be exempt under a water emergency, the city now believes they're not exempt from paying surcharges.
I don't know if "not" is the right word. We're gonna recommend that they are not exempt. It's unclear if you look at the material, and if you look at there's only 2 contracts that were signed by any of the large volume users who are paying this 31 cents, and there's a template one that was available for guidance. So the old drought contingency plan and these prior contracts that were approved, unfortunately, were never updated. And industry had a chance about a year ago when we updated the drought contingency plan. The drought contingency plan, the old version, and now the new one that has been in place for about a year, it eliminated what was a stage 4 exemption to paying surcharges. And we have a brand new category called the level 1 water emergency. And so from a technical read, if you look at the documents and you read them all, there's nowhere does it say that under a level 1 water emergency, large volume users would be exempt from surcharges if they were paying that drought exemption surcharge fee. So it doesn't say it anywhere, right? But there's a nuance, there's interpretation. That's why we're going to we have begun, but we'll talk to the large volume users to see what their thoughts are. We'll work with them. The issue is there's extreme angst in our residential classification and commercial that we're not treating people fair. We're not treating all customer classifications fair. And that's a guiding principle from state law is equal treatment across classifications. And so the drought exemption surcharges can be implemented in what we call a stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 water restriction. We never did. We never did recommend doing that, but we could have. And so the drought exemption surcharge fee helped those large industrial customers protect against any surcharges in level 1, 2, 3, or stages 1, 2, 3. But in the level 1 water emergency, nowhere does it say in the documents that they're exempt from paying surcharges.
Okay, I understand that. So I guess my next question would be, when will we have absolute clarity?
Right.
Will it be a council vote? When will that happen?
Yeah.
Where are we at in this stage?
Right, that's why we're glad to preview it today, because it's going to happen this Tuesday coming up. So City Council will consider, and we'll present on Tuesday, and we expect there'll be some dialogue. We expect we'll have large volume users here as well to give feedback, and we're getting feedback as well from them. So on Tuesday at City Council, the plan is to go through all the amendments to the drought management plan. So there's 100% clarity on how to move forward if we go into a level 1 water emergency. So on Tuesday, one of the items to be discussed is the one Rachel and I are talking about now, which is that the clarity on how much drought surcharge exemption is waived if you buy the drought surcharge exemption insurance. On Tuesday, we're going to say that in a level 1 water emergency, it is no longer insurance that applies to that emergency when it comes to surcharges. We'll tell council that, and we'll have discussion from council. Ultimately, the 9 council members will vote on that policy, and it'll come down to that vote on Tuesday. Mm-hmm.
I guess I get to keep asking questions. Nobody else is here. I do want to switch over to the proposal we heard related to Acts H2O this week.
Okay.
So you described that as lacking a site under contract, a funding timeline, customers, CapEx figures, and any apparent experience in water delivery. You put it on the agenda because council members requested it. How much staff time does vetting a proposal at that stage require? And given the urgency of the water crisis, is that a responsible use of your team's bandwidth?
Yeah, the answer, well, Rachel's question deals with an item that was on the City Council agenda this past Tuesday, and it was really a beginning, not a beginning, it was really a draft presentation from this Acts H2O group who had not only met with us, but went around us and met with council members as well. And so under normal conditions, we would vet proposals. We get proposals constantly from persons that have ideas on how we can buy water from them. In this case, the Acts H2O folks went to several city council members and wanted to come to city council. Acts H2O did to present their business proposal. Under general and prior practices, we would have spent, if we thought it was a good proposal, quite a bit of time to analyze it, to ask some questions. I don't know how many days or hours in total, Rachel, but it would have been a lot of time. Based on Nick Winkleman, our COO of Corpus Christi Water, we just have a ton of questions on their proposal. As I said Tuesday, and as I stand by that word, which is they have never done water before. They have no customers. They have no real estate under contract. They have no business model. They have no permits. They have a price for the water that we don't really think is realistic, coming from a desal facility. So there would have been a lot of time that we would have spent to have this entity prove up their business concept before we brought it to City Council. But because they had approached some council members, the council really just wanted to give them an opportunity to present generally their business proposal here. So, and I also wanted to get direction from City Council from all 9 members. Is this something you want us to look into? And so the council did vote. I think it was 6-2-1, 6 affirmative votes that we should look into this business proposal. But what it means now is that Axe H2O really has to develop the business proposal. We're not going to develop it for them, and we're going to be probably using our time wisely so that they can really prove up before they come back to us their proposal, to include things like where is the plant going to be, how do you plan to get permits from TCEQ and the Army Corps of Engineers. Let's look at a detailed budget to see how do you really get to $6.50 a thousand. Most desal facilities, ours is more than that, and Harbor Island, they stated is like 14 to 15 1,000 gallons, a similar offshore system. So we won't be spending too much time to help them develop their proposal. They have to develop their proposal, come back to us, and really going forward now, since we're past this step of presenting to council, it's really the onus is going to be on Axe H2O to prove up their business concept. And we'll use some of our consultants potentially on vetting their business proposal when they bring it back.
I think I have time for one more question, right? I want to follow up on a question I asked, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, related to the Nueces River Authority and the water reservation fee. Initially, you said it's a non-refundable fee. However, allegations have been made that the city council was misled. You said you would go to legal and ask legal if those allegations are proven true, could the city claw back that money? Have you gotten an answer from legal?
We did get an answer, and we provided that to council when this thing first was announced a couple of weeks ago. So the contract is clear that that was presented to City Council and that was approved ultimately on when we recommended and entered into this contract for the $2.7 million reservation fee. And so the contract says that there is no refund. It's non-refundable. Miles Risley, our city attorney, has opined with me that there is no way to get the money back. We'll continue to evaluate it, though. We know that today the NRA has a board meeting to discuss an executive session, the review that's underway on the employees' allegations against John Byram and the entity itself. And so we'll wait to see what the outcome of that report is. Right now, though, based on our attorney's recommendation or feedback, there is no way to get the money back. And it may not warrant that if the report comes out clear. So we'll have to see, one, what does the report say? If the council wants us to consider this more, we can do that. It'll take a legal review, though. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That does conclude our press conference, but we do want to let the community know about our community water information sessions. There will be 8 different sessions throughout the community across all districts. The first one will begin this Monday, May 11th from 6 to 7 out on the island. So for our viewers' sake, it is up on the screen. There's more information that you can visit the website online, so you can get more details on those information sessions. We'll have another water information session media briefing here this Friday, again at 10 a.m. on May 15th, and a full recording of today's presentation is available on YouTube. For any follow-up questions, they can be sent to communications department at corpuschristitx.gov. Thank you.